Well, welcome into the Chiefs Report by Chat Sports. I am Harrison Graham. Coming up on today's show, an updated tracker of Chiefs top 30 draft visits. Kansas City starting to bring people into the facility, check them out, see what draft prospects they like, they don't like. So we'll get you caught up on some of the guys they've brought in here. Just a reminder, Chiefs have 10 draft picks as of now, number 31 overall in the first round, 63 in round 2, 95 in round 3. A couple of fourth-round picks. They have that one from the Tyreek Hill trade there still, number 134 overall as well. Fifth-round pick, 2 sixth-round picks, one from Chicago, one comp pick, a seventh-round pick, and then also a comp pick in round 7 as well. So Brett Veach has a lot of ammunition to get things done, and one of our other studios is yelling at the top of their lungs. So if you hear that in the background, that is what's happening. Name a player that you want the Chiefs to draft this year. Doesn't have to be a first-round pick. It can be anybody. It could be a round 1 guy, round 2, sleeper, whatever you're thinking. Let me know a name of a player that you would like to see the Chiefs draft. All right, let's get to some of these visits here. Quentin Johnston, who we talked about on a video recently, the wide receiver out of TCU. You look at his rise in college, just got better each and every year, more productive, big play weapon, averaged over 20 yards per catch his freshman year, almost 20 his sophomore year, and even with more volume his junior year was still over 17 yards a catch, 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns in 2022. And I mentioned this when we talked about him the other day. He's a unique player. He would give Patrick Mahomes a different look at wide receiver than what they currently have. Yeah, the build might be similar to that of a Marquez Valdes-Scantling, but MVS is kind of purely a deep threat. He's not someone who's going to work underneath that often or across the middle. Quentin Johnston can. He's a guy you can get the ball in space. He's going to make people miss. Now, I don't think that Johnston is necessarily going to fall to number 31 overall. I think you may have to go get him, but he could fall to the 20s, and maybe if he's there 22, 23, 24, you pull the trigger on moving up to go out and draft him. All right, next up here is Cam Smith, a player I got to interview actually at the Super Bowl when I was out there in Phoenix, Arizona. Like this kid, humble player, had a good year for South Carolina, gave up just 47% completion, only a couple of touchdowns, 5 breakups and a pick. He was good in coverage, wasn't targeted that much at all. And don't be surprised if the Chiefs go corner early. I mean, you look at their depth chart, yeah, you'd say, okay, they have Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, L'Jarius Sneed, Josh Williams. Why do they need to take a corner early? Well, L'Jarius Sneed on the final year of his rookie contract. I think there's at least a chance the Chiefs could explore moving him. And Brett Veach has a good track record of kind of drafting and replacing corners. He's done that. He let Charvarius Ward walk in free agency. He could let L'Jarius Sneed go if he doesn't want to pay him as well. Remember, the Chiefs are a team that have to figure out who they're budgeting for. I like L'Jarius Sneed. I'd like to keep him around, but Brett Veach isn't scared to let a good player go or to trade a good player to think ahead either. So I would not be surprised in a loaded cornerback class to see Kansas City go with the corner in the early rounds. Darnell Wright next up here, the offensive tackle out of Tennessee. You look at his Pro Football Focus grades from last year. Graded out really well as a pass blocker, over 80, 71 overall. Not a great run blocking grade, but remember Tennessee ran that super college-y air raid offense where they're splitting the receivers out wide. They didn't run the ball a ton either, so take that for what it's worth. Obviously, it would be a little bit of a different system here with certainly some air raid schematics in it, of course. But that right tackle spot is kind of the one on the offensive line that, is somewhat up in the air, assuming they do stick to the plan of Jawan Taylor at left tackle. He'll hold that down. But Lucas Niang got hurt a couple of years ago, missed the rest of that season, did not play last year as Andrew Wiley won that job and held it down all year. I like Niang there. The Chiefs seem to like him, but bringing in at least competition's a decent option. I think Darnell Wright at 31 overall could be an intriguing talent, and I think is one of the best pure right tackles in this class and could even be better than a guy like Lucas Niang. Should the Chiefs draft an offensive tackle early in this draft? Type Y for yes. You can type in for no. I'd be open to it. I think if a guy like Darnell Wright is sitting there, I would be intrigued. Let me know what you guys think. Next up is Rashee Rice, the wide receiver out of SMU. Good size, 6'2", 6'3", over 200 pounds, can go up and get it. Now, while he had good production this past year for the Mustangs, in the American Athletic Conference. Hasn't had a great pre-draft period. Going into the draft, I think he was like a lock second-round pick. I think he might be more of a round 3 guy. I mentioned he can go up and get the football. He high points it pretty well, but didn't have a great Senior Bowl week. Didn't really stand out there. Didn't really, wow anybody at the combine. Didn't do poorly by any means. I just think some other receivers may have passed him by. So I'll be very curious to see how teams grade him out. I think he's like a round 3 guy. Maybe he goes round 2. Keeanu Benton, the defensive tackle out of Wisconsin, as he is a intriguing player who has been moving up draft boards, whereas Rice has maybe been moving down draft boards just a little bit. Benton is a player who can play both defensive tackle spots, have 5 sacks last year for the Badgers. It'd be interesting to see what his role would be on this defense, because obviously you have Chris Jones, who's that 3-tech defensive tackle who plays edge rusher every once in a while. The Chiefs re-signed Derek Nottie, but I think he could just be kind of a heavy rotation interior guy that could play either spot. So I'd be curious to see where the Chiefs viewed him at. Now, if you love the NFL draft, subscribe to our draft channel. With the draft just a couple of weeks away here, we're going to be dropping as much coverage as possible over there, youtube.com/chatnfl. That is the place to go. Search that link. It'll be in the description and comments of this video. It's youtube.com/chatnfl. Multiple draft videos per day. Stay in the loop with the 2023 NFL draft. Let's go to Desjuan Alexandre, as the defensive lineman out of Pittsburgh has taken a visit as well. Pretty productive this past year for the Panthers, as he had 5.5 sacks, 6.5 tackles for loss, couple of batted balls as well. He's kind of a tweener. He played with Kahlef Cansey, and I actually think he's a similar type of player, but just not as good, to be quite frank. But is he a 1-tech? Is he an edge? Is he a 3? Where does he play? I think he's kind of one of these rotation guys that you move him around different spots, figure out what his best fit is in the NFL. I think he's a guy on day 3 to monitor. Remember, Chiefs lost Colin Saunders in free agency. Kahlef, Hailassie, the quarterback out of Western Kentucky. You want to talk about a classic Brett Veach sleeper target? That's this kid. Remember, the Chiefs landed Trent McDuffie in the first round last year, so not a sleeper, but they also found Josh Williams out of D2 Fayetteville State in the 4th round, and Jalen Watson out of Washington State in round 7. Both of those guys were major contributors for this team last year and started several games. This kid has that type of potential. He's 6'1", he's long, can go up and deflect footballs. So I think he could be a guy that you draft later in the draft and, develop him, and eventually he becomes a starter for you. Name a sleeper prospect in the 2023 NFL draft that you like. Brett Veach is good at finding them. Who's someone that you think could be a sleeper later in the draft? Let me know down in the comments. Cooper Hodges, maybe he's a sleeper. Offensive lineman out of App State, has some positional versatility. We'll see where he factors in to the draft. You got Jerrick Reed out of New Mexico. Smaller program, obviously, but very productive for the Lobos. This past season had 11 breakups, an interception, 2 forced fumbles, had 94 tackles. Not afraid to stick his nose in there and mix it up in the run game as well. Pretty good coverage skills. Day 3 type of player who could give you instant value on special teams. Subscribe to the channel if you want more Chiefs draft videos here on YouTube. Hit that notification bell as well to stay in the loop and know exactly when we go live and when we publish videos. It's youtube.com/ChiefsTV. Subscribe, turn on your noties, don't miss any of it. Brodric Martin, the defensive tackle out of Western Kentucky. He's a big boy, about 330 pounds. Bring him in as a nose tackle on day 3. Should be a decent rotation run stuffer. B.J. Thompson, the defensive end out of Stephen F. Austin, intriguing athlete, obviously small FCS school here. We'll see where he could factor in. Desjuan Johnson, defensive lineman out of Toledo. Remember, with some of these visits, it's information gathering. Some of them qualify as local visits as well. And then you've got Jeremy Banks, the linebacker out of Tennessee. Chiefs in a pretty good spot at linebacker. They're 4 deep right now, or really 5 deep, with Nick Bolton, Willie Gay, Drew Tranquil, Leo Chenal, and Darius Harris. But Banks is a guy guy who should have some special teams value, and he's had some off-the-field concerns, so he could be someone you get with good value later on in the NFL draft. All right, folks, that's it for today's video. If you have any questions, thoughts, hit me up on social media at HGramNFL on Instagram. It's at HGramNFL on Twitter as well. Join the movement as we continue to roll here on the Chiefs Report.